This Christmas, I disappeared, not from the city, but from the kitchen that had held me for 15 years. On a beach in Mexico, the sun lay over the sea like a thin coat of sugar, and I sat on a wooden chair with my feet buried in warm sand. My phone was off. Messages, calls, all those little tings were still racing somewhere else. Definitely not here. Here there were only waves chasing each other and the citrusy scent of sunscreen, and me, for the first time in 15 years, not standing in a steaming kitchen, not counting down to the oven's ding, not wondering whether I'd salted the boiling potatoes. I opened the small notebook I'd brought and wrote exactly 3 lines. Today I'm not cooking. Today I'm present at my own holiday. Today lunch is only wind and light. It sounds romantic, but the truth is simpler. I just wanted to see what a holiday looked like without me in the role of default chef. A day when, if anyone took pictures, my face would be inside the frame, not blurred behind a turkey or hidden by a mountain of dishes. Have you ever realized you appear in your family's history like a shadow? I realized it through a thick album, year after year, photographs of groaning tables, of unwrapping gifts, of everyone laughing and leaning into each other, and me, if present at all, as the arm carrying a tray or a stray lock of hair poking in from the corner. When you're absent from your family's memories, the feeling isn't just sadness. It's like a long receipt listing every hour, every expense, every emergency call. Sweetheart, we're out of cloves, with no line that says paid. On the beach, I pictured the kitchen in Connecticut, the fridge buzzing, my mother opening and closing drawers looking for my tools, my father folding his newspaper but keeping one eye on a pot of gravy turning lumpy, my sister photographing everything except the person spinning in the kitchen, my brother arriving an hour late saying traffic. I laughed, not with scorn, but at a truth so obvious everyone overlooks it. Without a doer, tradition doesn't run itself. The wind turned a page in my notebook. I wrote one more line. If I have to choose between being loved for the meals I make and being seen for who I am, I'll choose the latter. Someone will call that selfish, maybe. But some holidays teach you that giving is the easiest way to avoid asking for anything, to dodge the hard conversation. I want to be at this meal as family, not as a service. Where are you watching from? Have you ever felt taken for granted? If so, I want you to hear this story, not to make you hate the holidays, but to remind you that silence is an expensive kind of labor. And sometimes, for others to learn how to wipe the table, you have to take your hand off the rag. I closed the notebook. I'm not promising myself I'll never cook again. I'm only promising that, from now on, if I cook, it'll be a gift freely given, not a default. I was 23 the first year I cooked Thanksgiving. My mother had the flu, Grandma was in Florida, and my father murmured, "Should we order in?" I said, "I'll do it." The instant I said it, my stomach tightened, as if I'd just signed up to run a marathon in front of the whole park. I wasn't a professional chef. My gear was just the old oven at home, a borrowed cast iron pan, a set of dulled knives, and a turkey recipe I'd copied from some food blogs. For 3 days leading up to the holiday, I lived inside lists. A brine list, hours of soak list, a mise-en-place list for the right pans. I clipped a thermometer into my shirt pocket like a pen, set alarms dividing day and night, 6 huntok brine, 12 huntok baste with ginger butter, 15 huntok flip the pan, 17:30 check thigh temperature. My boyfriend Evan stood beside me washing greens quietly, without any urge to teach. He peeled potatoes as if peeling a secret, slow, clean, slipping each piece into salted water. Butter hitting a hot pan has a sound all its own, like sandpaper rubbing together. Bay leaves, clove, cinnamon, black pepper rose in a light perfume. The cold kitchen warmed into a different room. I test-baked a small batch of rolls. They puffed open, edges golden, cracking into careless seams that seemed to laugh at my nerves. By afternoon, the house filled with footsteps, with coats rubbing, with cousins calling names. When I opened the oven for the last time and lifted the turkey out, My back burned, my hands shook, but my heartbeat felt oddly steady. My father, the man who wears silence like a cloak, folded his paper and said a single short line, "Better than other years." My sister set up the camera and snapped several shots of the brilliant table. My brother grabbed 2 slices of breast at once, too full-mouthed to say thanks. Dinner moved like a flawless song, not because everything was perfect, but because no one glanced at a clock. There's a natural rhythm when people eat food you've cooked with eagerness. You slow down, watch their faces scrunch at a sauce a touch salty, nod at a pie at just the right wobble. Afterward, while Evan and I washed dishes and warm water soothed my wrists, he said softly, "They loved it, and they'll quickly love this arrangement." I smiled, catching the pun without swimming after it. "Who wouldn't?" "Right," he added. "Just don't let what they love become your default." I didn't understand then. At 23, praise, especially from people who rarely praise, is a potent intoxication. I fell asleep late that night next to Evan, breathing in his steady ocean breath, thinking, I saved a holiday. No one, not even me, thought beyond a year. The next morning my mother texted, "You saved Thanksgiving." A short line, not even an exclamation mark. My brain supplied the fireworks anyway. I thought about new dishes, about nutmeg I'd never used, about the oven with cracked enamel that needed replacing. From that moment, a switch flipped in my head. When the holidays come, the kitchen lights up. No one asked how many holidays I was ready for. No one asked whether I planned to date, travel, live. The family just nodded as if the current had found an outlet. Maybe that was when the mold formed, gently, like pressing your palm into dough. You don't notice the first indentation. Year 2, I pulled off the miracle again. Year 3, no one called it a miracle anymore. They called it tradition. And tradition ballooned. Easter, 4th of July, birthdays, graduations, housewarmings. Each occasion had a concept. Each concept had a menu, a timetable, a shopping list so long I built templates to print. The help became an operating system. I optimized time like a project manager. Base sauces the night before, bread at dawn, main course at noon, plating in the late afternoon. I color-coded notes, blue for dry goods, yellow for cold, red for items that, if forgotten, sunk the whole meal. In my mind, I installed sliding drawers storing emergency scripts. What to do if the turkey dries out, if the cheesecake cracks, if rain pushes a barbecue indoors. Costs climbed. At first, everyone chipped in a little for fun. Later, let me buy to keep it consistent, became me footing the bill. I bought German knives, a heavy-duty mixer, an instant read thermometer, and sets of slim-rimmed white plates just for the photos. I smiled while swiping my card. Each item felt like a promise to myself. Next time will be easier. But next time never lightened. People adapt quickly to better. Work got busy too. I moved from designer to project manager. Emails didn't wait. Deadlines didn't forgive. I learned to guard the oven while replying to clients. Sometimes I'd catch myself standing in the supermarket, a bag of almonds in my hand, wondering, who am I cooking this for tonight? For the family, for me, or for a picture not yet taken? Evan took a job overseas. "Will you come?" he asked. I hesitated, then shook my head. "It's close to the holidays." He looked at me as if I'd spoken ungrammatically. "One holiday season makes you miss a season of life?" I was silent. We broke up as cleanly as a cord slipping from a knot. No fight, no drama. Just 2 people at opposite ends of a kitchen. One ready to kill the flame and go, the other cranking it higher. Families are rarely malicious. That's the hard part. Most of what exhausts you isn't done to exhaust you. People get used to you. Mom says, "Sweetie, those strawberry tarts were a hit. Make them again?" Dad notes, "The gravy was a little weak last time." My sister sends a Pinterest photo. "Set the table like this, so chic." My brother says, "Pack me a box to go, yeah?" Each is a gentle thread, but enough threads braid a net. I tried asking for help. "Can someone do the shopping?" Maybe arrive an hour early? Everyone said sure in that tone that means if I'm free. As the clock ticked, there was got tied up, traffic, the baby. I smiled and nodded, kept mincing onions. It's okay. I can handle it, I told myself. I always could. That was the problem. Once at my uncle's birthday, my sister said, "Let me get a family photo." I put down the knife, washed the garlic off my hands, wiped them on my jeans, and ran to the living room. All done. Looks great. She showed the screen, and everyone admired it. I stood in the doorway, feeling that peculiar sensation of a person who arrives one beat too late. The train doors seal, the elevator slides shut, the frame is missing exactly one person. After that dinner, I went home and slid to the kitchen floor, my back against the cabinet, a stock pot soaked in the sink, streaks of sauce dried on my arms like freckles. I flicked on the small yellow light. The kitchen became a stage after the curtain falls, rows of seats empty. For the first time, I asked, "What if I'm sick tomorrow? Does the meal stop or go on?" The answer came too quickly. It goes on. Will someone else shop, research recipes, preheat ovens, wash dishes? No, they'll call me. In the end, a flu answered for me. Jane's engagement party had a cream pale gold olive concept. I built a mood board as carefully as for a client. Low pillar candles, linen napkins, baby's breath. The menu: brie and honey canapes, prosciutto-wrapped melon, roasted tomato bruschetta, mini quiches, and a bona fide dessert table, heights, textures, negative space. I got up at 4:30, zested lemons for perfume, chiffonated basil without bruising it, baked lemon tarts so their surface only trembled at the lightest tap. I reached my mother's at 7, tied on an apron, turned on soft jazz, and ran the timeline like a stage manager. Mom popped in, sniffed. "Smells amazing." She smiled and went to call the balloon crew. No one asked if I'd eaten. Guests arrived. Congratulations rolled from the living room into the kitchen like tide. Through the doorway, I saw my sister radiant enough to make the yellow bulbs applaud. Her ringed hand flashed through each hug. I lit candles, plated, ordered the flow so hot trays came first and cold dishes later, keeping scents from clashing. At toast time, I hesitated. I thought, go to the living room, but I still held an offset spatula, and just then someone called, "Elisa, where's the powdered sugar cake?" I turned back. Glass clinks rose behind me. "Thank you, Mom and Dad." "Thank you to his family," Jane said. Laughter. "Cheese." I stood in the kitchen smiling to myself. When I brought the tray out, clapping turned into soft oohs. Honestly, I love that moment. Food is a language that needs no translating. Everyone understands. But understanding the dish isn't the same as understanding the cook. After round 3 of refills, Mom called, "Elisa, the light's glaring." I adjusted a lamp. They snapped the official picture. I stood a few steps away, waiting for someone to wave. "Come on in." No one waved. I thought of Evan's old half-glance in the sink. I gave myself a thin smile and went back into the kitchen. Sometimes assure to yourself sounds as flimsy as tissue paper. Robert walked in while I was wrapping leftovers. "Got a cold beer?" he asked, then mocked himself. "Kidding, I'm hiding from the crowd." He was on the groom's side, half a head taller than me, sleeves rolled, wearing the comfort of someone who knows he looks good in soft light. "You're Elisa?" "I'm Elisa," I corrected, without the ma'am. He nodded. "They said you make magic." I arched a brow. "They're overselling it. My magic is showing up when there's food," he joked. And without asking, he rolled up his sleeves, grabbed a towel, and stood beside me. Not, "Let me show you how," but "Tell me where I won't be in the way." We worked side by side, conversation in little bursts. He asked whether I still liked cooking for myself. I paused a beat. On regular days, yes. Lately, I cook so much that the smell of olive oil at home makes me switch off the stove. He hummed. My mom was like that. Did everything for everyone. On my dad's 50th, she started crying while cutting the cake. We were stunned. First time we realized a party doesn't just happen. He met my eyes. There's a term, emotional labor. I think you know it best. The way he used the term made me stop. I knew it, but no one in my family had ever said it out loud. I called my work taking care, fussing. It's just what I like. What would you change most, he asked. To be named in the thank yous, I blurted, surprised at my own truth. Or, to be in a photo. Robert smiled without pity. Then let's start with a photo. He lifted his phone and snapped me, right there in the kitchen, tongs in hand, hair up, light grazing my cheek. Beautiful, he said, enough to remember. When the party ended, people hugged their goodbyes. Mom said, today was perfect, Jane praised. Dessert table, stunning. Dad took the trash out. No one said, get in this picture. I gathered dishes. The dishwater cooled, fizzing like broken snow. Robert pulled on his jacket. At the door, he asked for my number with an easy line. If next time you want someone to carry a tray, call me. I laughed and gave it, not because I needed a tray carrier, but because for the first time in a long time, someone had walked into the kitchen not to ask, what's next on the menu? That night at home, I opened the photo he'd taken. No fancy composition, no candles, string lights, flowers. Just me, a person, not a service. I emailed it to myself, subject proof. I didn't know when the photo would save me. I only knew that somewhere, in an album I owned, my face filled the frame. Thanksgiving morning, the thermometer glared 101.3 degrees, 38.5 degrees. I swallowed 2 cold tablets and hauled the spice bag that felt like an old vow. The kitchen woke to steam from a stock pot. Chicken bones, onion, celery twisted together like cords. I wore gloves because my hands shook, and because I didn't want to cough over the food. Mom gave me a properly worried crease. Just don't cough near anything. She left. The kitchen door half shut like a tired eyelid. I ran like a trained machine, basted, checked temps, rest the meat, whipped the sauce. Sweat slid down my spine like a thin knife. Dad peeked in. What time's dinner? Then vanished like a faint letter. Jane arrived, high heels hitting tile sharper than usual, talking wedding planners and champagne color palettes. Patrick was late, sighed about traffic, popped the mashed potato lid like a secret that wasn't his. Grandma sniffed and declared, smells different this year. At dinner, I could hardly taste. The turkey on my plate was a light and shadow lump. I lifted my fork, then set it down. As I left the table, laughter in the living room queued up like background music. I went back to the kitchen, started the dishwasher. Every little click was a tired heartbeat. There was an album on the counter. Curiosity is my old instinct, like a cat drawn to paper. I flipped. First page, Christmas, the table glowing. I wasn't there. Next, Easter, pastel eggs. Not there. Back through the years, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Dad's birthday, Mom's, warm, beautiful images of everyone except the person carrying the party. If I appeared, I was the bent back, the hand transferring a roast, a flash of hair in the corner. Something dropped inside me, not tears. The fever had dried those. A stone hit the bottom of a well. Photos don't lie. For 15 years, I'd stood outside my family's memory. I carried the album into the living room. Mom, I said softly, my voice hoarse with a cold and something else. I'm hardly in these. She frowned at it like a long math problem. Because you're always in the kitchen, dear. Patrick chuckled. Everyone's got a role. Jane's the pretty one. I'm the funny one. You're the one who feeds us. His light joke fell like lead. I shut the album. The cover smacked the table like an exclamation point. I'm going home, I said, reaching for my coat. I'm tired. But we haven't had cheesecake, Mom cried. You can cut it without me, I said, my fingers closing on the cold doorknob. like a decision turning to ice. On the drive, the fever turned the world gauzy. Sophia came with medicine, tissues, and an undecorated question. Why do you do this to yourself? I didn't know how to answer, so I showed her photos of Page's, evidence of a long disappearance. That night, Robert called. I told him everything in a whispery, sick voice, but clear with truth. You can't keep doing this, he said slowly, and you don't have to. I lay back. In the heat of the fever, a thin breeze passed through me, as if a door had opened in a long-closed room. 2 weeks before the next Thanksgiving, I called my mother. No small talk about weather or butter prices. I'm not cooking this year, I said. On the other end, a quiet pocket, like the moment before a storm hits shore. Such a strange joke, she laughed, then shifted tone. You're serious? Serious. I'll come as a guest, nothing more. The family chat exploded. My father typed a classic Gerald line. Received. Jane called immediately. Why are you creating drama in my wedding season? Patrick messaged privately. If it's money, I'll pitch in. 500, 1,000. I stared at the screen and saw not malice, but a matrix of convenience. Grandma relayed a message through Mom. In this house, tradition comes before the individual. Mom arranged a family meeting on video, intervention style. It's so close, she said. Our restaurants are booked. I'm a terrible cook. Everyone relies on you. That's the problem, I said. Everyone relies on me without seeing me. Jane tried a workaround. Hire a helper. You supervise. Win-win. No, I shook my head. I don't need a new way to do the old job. I need a new structure. Silence stretched. Then Patrick exhaled. Okay, I'll order a pre-cooked turkey. We'll try. Not everyone understood. Not everyone wanted to. But try had been said. I ended the call, my hands warming around a mug of tea. Boundaries don't have screws, but they can stand if you hold them steady every day. That night, Robert asked, "What scares you most?" I thought, being called selfish, losing my place in the family. He half smiled. A place that exists only if you work for free isn't a place. It's a shift. Families shouldn't need you on duty. They should want you present. I wrote that on a sticky note and stuck it to the fridge beside my favorite red wine sauce recipe. My new recipe strangely had no ingredients, just one word, no, seasoned by saying it aloud, calmly, often. On the day, for the first time in years, I slept 8 hours. I chose a simple knit dress, no pocket for a thermometer, no strap for a towel. I took a bottle of wine like any guest and rang the bell right at mealtime. The door opened onto a scene that was both funny and a little sad. The pre-cooked turkey still had its label, Mom fussing with disposable aluminum pans, Dad stirring instant gravy into little clotted islands, Jane leaning against the counter, twirling her hair, Patrick sprinting around looking for a ladle. Thank God you're here, Mom said. It says heat to 165 degrees, and I don't know what to set the oven to. I hugged her. The packaging has instructions, Mom. Try 350 degree, about 175 degree, for 25 to 30 minutes. Check halfway. I hung my coat and asked, "Can I help as a guest? I can set the table." Mom pressed her lips together, then nodded. I laid out forks and knives, swapped a tired tablecloth for a runner, tucked a few sprigs of rosemary into glasses. Enough fragrance, enough restraint. 30 minutes later, we sat. The meal wasn't a disaster, but there wasn't any magic. The turkey was a bit dry. The mash had a few floury lumps. Green beans boiled past crisp. The gravy freckled like a light rain. But one thing was perfect. I sat for the entire meal. I didn't get up halfway through. I didn't shuttle back and forth like a loom. I heard my father raise a glass to everyone being here. A plain phrase that for the first time truly included everyone. Jane still posted photos. But in that photo, I was in the middle, shoulder to shoulder with Mom. My eyes weren't darting to check whether the oven was off. They looked straight ahead, calm. as if that place had always been mine. After dinner, I rolled up my sleeves as a guest, cleared a few plates, stowed the half-finished wine, washed one load of dishes. No one was startled. No one barked, "Leave that, I'll do it," in the blocking tone of other years. Before I left, Mom hugged me longer than usual. "We missed your flavor," she whispered. "True," I nodded, but I was here." Then came the familiar rub on an old callus. "Christmas. You'll cook, right?" I exhaled. "No, Mom." As the words left me, something slipped off my shoulders, light as a loosened string. She blinked. I smiled. "I'm going away. I need a Christmas without the smell of burned butter." I didn't say with whom. Some facts, like yeast, need silence to rise. Christmas morning, the sea was so blue it looked inked. I woke at 4:30 out of habit, then remembered there was no turkey waiting to be basted. Robert slept, his breath a wordless song. I brewed resort coffee, the dark roast dragging old home memories into the sun. At 10 a.m., I turned on my phone. The screen lit up like a Christmas tree. Mom's messages slid from gentle to panicked. "Merry Christmas. Are you coming? Turkey still frozen. Oven smoking? Gravy ruined." Jane snapped, "And great, you vanish and we eat a paste." Dad, steady. "Your mother is very upset." Patrick, practical. "Google says 3 days to defrost." True? I set the phone on the wooden balcony table and listened to the waves speaking a language older than kitchens. Sophia called, voice like a report both funny and tender. "Your dad's watching how to carve a turkey. Your mom's near tears because the potatoes are glue. Grandma sighs in my day. And Patrick's lobbying for pizza." I laughed, then quieted. "Am I being cruel?" "No," she said. "They're finally doing math you've done in your head for 15 years. I sent one group text, 3 safe, simple lines. Internal temp, resting time, how to rescue lumpy mash with warmed milk and butter. Then, Merry Christmas. I hope today brings joy and perspective." I put the phone down and turned off notifications. On the sand, 2 seagulls walked like 2 tiny exclamation points. The day passed in things I'd forgotten. A nap, devouring a novel with no recipes, sketching a few pencil lines, eating food other people made without analyzing the seasoning. At sunset, we walked. The sky blended like hand-mixed glaze, orange, pink, purple. Robert stopped and looked at me as if examining a photo fresh from the darkroom. "You look like someone else." "Someone who's at every meal but in no photos?" I joked. He shook his head. "Someone who chooses to be in the picture and chooses when to step into the kitchen." We talked about chosen generosity versus required generosity. Same ingredients, different scent. I realized kindness isn't infinite. A great dish needs resting time. A human does too. I'd roasted myself at 400 degrees, 200 digs, for 15 years and wondered why I was cracked dry. That night I checked my phone again. A group photo had arrived, everyone rosy with wine and fatigue. The turkey was roughly carved, the mash lumpy. But in the photo, there was a gap at the center of the table. They'd pushed their chairs closer to fill it. I felt peace. That gap wasn't waiting for me to plug. It was space for everyone to move, to learn their places, and maybe, one day, to invite me to sit as kin, not as a walking oven. Before sleep, I texted Mom privately. "I'll video call tomorrow morning. Love you." She replied quicker than I expected. "Love you, this Christmas. Hard but worth it. I understand more now." That was all. Enough. I turned off the lights. Outside, the surf kept time. Inside me, another kitchen shut down, cleaned up, knives set to dry. Not quitting cooking, only so that if I turned the flame back on tomorrow, it would be for a meal I wanted to host, and a chair I wanted to sit in. By noon on Christmas in Mexico, I turned my phone on again. Messages popped like corn. "Mom, oven at 200 degrees and turkey still cold. Is it broken?" Patrick, "Gravy ills glue. Fix?" Jane, "Grandma just sighed for the 18th time." Dad sent a photo of mashed potatoes cemented to the spoon. I didn't feel the morning's guilt anymore. What I felt was strange, calm. On the porch with salt wind in my hair, I typed instructions as if for beginners. Quick thaw, no hot water, submerge in cold water, change every 30 minutes, heat in oven to 74 degrees or 165 degrees at the thickest point. Lumpy gravy, remove from heat, add warm stock, stir gently. Lumpy mash, warm milk plus butter, fold in gradually. Then one last line, eat slowly and talk a lot today. It's okay if it's a bit bad. Sophia called back, laughing through her update. Patrick Band Pizza is learning to whisk. Your dad's watching YouTube at 0.75x to keep up. How's Mom? I asked. Better once her hands got busy, she said. Problem is, for this many years, they didn't have to use them. I hung up. At a nearby table, a Mexican mother and child fought over a sugar-dusted pastry, giggling as powder stuck to their noses. I watched them like a simple solution. A meal isn't a performance. It's an excuse to be near. For 15 years, I'd turned the excuse into a one-woman show. Dusk purpled, my phone buzzed. Dad, carving done, not pretty but edible. Mom, thank you. Next year, yet we should plan early. Jane, okay, you're right, typed small. Patrick, gravy saved, good night. I laughed, not because they could do it now, but because they'd begun to see. That evening, Robert and I walked the shoreline. Afraid you'll have to justify everything when you get back? He asked. Yes, but now I have questions too, I said. Why can't a tradition change so the one who built it can enjoy it? He squeezed my hand. For the first time, family and new terms stood side by side in my head without a fight. Next morning on video, Mom looked rumpled but softer. Dad proudly showed a plate of turkey with all its clumsy honesty. Grandma sat like an old exclamation mark. Are you happy? She asked. I am, I said. And I'm bringing that happiness home. Back in Connecticut, I hadn't unpacked before Mom texted to meet for coffee. Corner cafe, fogged window, small wooden table. She arrived early, holding a hot cup like a not yet spoken apology. Christmas was hard, she began. I waited. Hard in a good way, she added, voice slowing. I couldn't imagine how much you did each year. In the kitchen, time is long. She smiled, sad. I'm sorry. I took you for granted. I nodded. No soothing, no scolding. Mexico had taught me to let apologies be the size they are. Thank you for saying it, I replied. I don't need you to become a great cook. I need everyone to share responsibility. 2 days later, Dad emailed. He always emails when precision is needed. I signed up for a basic cooking class. I think it's time I learned to chop onions without crying. Sorry for eating well for years without washing enough dishes. I laughed out loud. Gerald, the man behind the paper, stepped out of the page with a paring knife. Jane took longer. From a mall parking lot, with AC hissing, she said, I hate admitting this, but I used you like a service. Her voice carried a rare shyness. I'm sorry, I'm learning to ask instead of expect. I inhaled. Thank you. Next time, if you want a dessert table, start with, what can I do to help? She laughed. Deal. As for Grandma, I visited on a pale afternoon. Her house always smelled of laundry powder and black and white pictures. In my day, she opened with the usual refrain, women doing the housework was natural. I believe you, I said. In my day, we want those things to be seen with fairer eyes. I poured her tea, my hands trembling slightly. Were you happy doing it without thanks? She set her cup down, one breath longer than usual. Your grandfather thanked me every meal for 52 years. Her voice softened a shade. Maybe this family forgot that word. I nodded. I'll remind them, and myself. That evening, Robert cooked pasta in my kitchen. He proposed a simple treaty, whoever cooks doesn't wash. I laughed. Sounds like a living room accord. Yup, he winked. Every lasting treaty starts at the sink. From scattered conversations, something started to take shape. Not that everyone suddenly knew how to cook, but that everyone started to see the motions, the time, the sweat, the person. Once people see, they're less careless. Dad's birthday fell on a crisp Saturday. Mom suggested potluck. Everyone brings one dish. The assignment list appeared in the group chat like a neat rota. Mom took the main, boeuf bourguignon, using my notes. I took a warm quinoa butternut goat cheese salad. Patrick handled drinks and setup. Jane claimed dessert, a new battlefield for her, but she said, "Give me a shot." Dad showed off his class signature, pasta salad. Humble name, but his eyes shone like he'd learned a new spell. That morning the kitchen hummed to the rhythm of many hands. Patrick set up folding tables and a runner, asked me about fork-to-plate spacing. Jane obsessed over icing glaze, texting photos of each batch. "Is this opaque enough?" Mom tiptoed with seasoning in the stew. "If it's too salty, how do I fix it?" "More stock, more time," I said, then laughed. Just like this family. Dad arrived with a big bowl of pasta, cherry tomatoes, cucumbers, olives, parsley. He tossed it, a bit clumsy but careful. "Taste," he offered, a touch salty. "A squeeze of lemon," I suggested. He tried it and blinked at how the flavors lifted. "So acidity is like a lamp," he said. I tapped his hand. "Exactly. When the light's on, you can see." At the table, no one disappeared. If a spoon was needed, whoever was closest stood. When plates emptied, 2 or 3 people automatically rotated in. I felt free. Free to watch Dad flush at compliments, free to see Mom eating slowly, free to laugh with Jane when her final glaze turned silky, free to clink glasses with Patrick. Grandma arrived late on her cane, sat, and surveyed the room like taking inventory. "Looks like a home today," she said. "Not a restaurant." Everyone laughed, and she did too. For photos, no one asked me to fix the light. Patrick set the phone on a tripod, timer at 10 seconds. "Everyone in!" I stood by Mom. Dad tugged me closer. Daughter in the middle. The countdown blinked. 3, 2, 1, click. For the first time in ages, I didn't sprint out of frame at the oven's ding. I stood still, body loose, eyes open, smile unforced. After dinner, no one escaped. Mom washed, Dad dried, Patrick stacked, Jane bagged the trash, I air-dried knives. Every movement was so ordinary it turned beautiful. When the place was tidy, Mom pulled me onto the balcony. Her breath smoked in the cold air. "If we'd done this sooner," she began. "You'd have more photos," I teased. She cut a thread of truth. "You'd have been less lonely." That night, the group chat pinged with a single photo. Everyone's there, no one blurred, no one blocked, no one holding a tray. Patrick captioned it, "Team effort, secret chef." Jane added, "And my glaze is perfectly good enough." Dad, who rarely comments, typed, "Thank you, everyone. Not thank you, food. Thank you, people." The next holiday season, I still cooked, some dishes I loved on days I chose. My menus had fewer words and more white space. Resting time for pastries, resting time for people. When my heart rate rose at a message, "Could you add this one more dish?" I breathed and replied, "No, we're good." I learned to say no like a new instrument. Off-key at first, then warm. I didn't become someone else. I still love the smell of frying shallots, the sound of a simmer, the color of melting butter. But I love them for me, not because everyone expects me to. Some mornings I still enter the kitchen early, to simmer bone broth with a podcast, to bake a surprise batch of cookies. And some days, I sit at the table with clean hands, talk about work, ask about theirs, eat the last bite of dessert without guilt. Grandma talks less about tradition. Recently, she patted my hand. Tradition is really what we do out of love, not fear of upsetting each other. I hugged her, the sentence light as powdered sugar, no more than needed, Enough. Robert taught me another pact. Whoever hosts picks the music. On quiet nights, we put on an old jazz playlist and simmer a slow tomato sauce. Stirring, he asked, "Remember what you said in Mexico?" I did. "I'll bring that happiness home." He smiled. "And you did." I leaned on his shoulder, listening to the pot bubble like a clock telling perfect time. At the start, I thought setting boundaries meant building walls. Now I know it means hanging doors. Doors have hinges. Open when you want, close when you need. Inside that door is my kitchen, a place I enter because I like it, not because I'm afraid. Beyond it is the table, with a chair bearing my name, not a backup seat behind a camera. If you see yourself in me, maybe you're the perennial driver, the slide fixer, the I can whip that up fast person. Hear this. You're allowed to choose. Choose which meal you cook, which words you don't say, which picture you stand in the middle of. And, if needed, choose a Christmas with no butter, no oven, no ding. I often think of the old album. It's still there on my mother's shelf, a record of an era. Next to it is a new one. In it, I appear often, sometimes laughing, sometimes squinting because the mustard's too strong, sometimes washing a dish, not because no one else would, because that day I wanted to. At the end of every video I tell, I still ask, have you ever had to step out of a role to truly find your place? That question no longer points at my family, it points at me. A gentle reminder, choose joy, not duty. Trade a little perfection for a lot of presence. Swap a flawless table shot for a slightly crooked one with everyone in the frame. And if someday you find yourself on a faraway beach, coffee in hand, reading frantic family texts, remember, you're not abandoning them. You're letting them learn how to come together, not orbiting you as a hub, but beside you as equals. Then going home won't mean returning to the kitchen, it'll mean returning to the table, where a chair with your name waits, no reservation needed.